Welcome to the rise of self-managed organizations. Thought we'd just do a little check-in, introduce ourselves, and then since it's such a small group, maybe just to get to hear who you are and why you've chosen to come. So just start off quickly. My name's Brent, and I'm a business and leadership coach. I work primarily with founders in scaling organizations. And specifically, a lot of the work that I do is focused on self-managed practices, self-organization. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what exactly does that mean, just before we go into introducing everybody else, because we're going to be using these terms a lot. So self-managed, self-management, self-managing ourselves is really about taking responsibility for ourselves. We're used to showing up often in organizations where we are being managed by someone else, and in self-managed organizations, we do a lot of that managing of ourselves. So you're going to hear that term a lot today, and you're also going to hear self-organization, which is really the art of a team coming together and organizing as individuals amongst ourselves. So we're going to dive into that quite a bit today. But let's just do some intros first. So you do your name, organization you're from, what it is your organization is designing in the world or giving to the world, and maybe an interesting fact about your organization. How's that sound?
Yeah. So my name is Dirk. I'm with ET Group. The purpose or reason of existence for ET Group is to bring harmony to work and workplace with technology. So we're a technology integrator that's very human-centric, creating workplaces of the future. I guess interesting, and the roles that I energize, so of the outside world, I'm the CEO, but really I energize a bunch of different roles that are aligned with my true strengths. So some of them are like talent attractor, another one is feedback giver. There's a bunch of different roles that we energize. I have that internally. An interesting fact about ET Group is that we have 50 people and everyone self-sets their own salaries.
All right. There you go. Erika.
Yeah, hi, I'm Erika Bailey. I work at the moment. We are an innovation design studio here in Toronto. So we help clients design everything from products to organizations to services to systems, and all the while help them with establishing new ways of working. So that's what we do. We're a 15-person organization, and within that organization, my position is, much like your position of CEO, is as an innovation designer, but I activate many different roles within the organization. One is to lead link the general company circle. So when we get to talk about roles, we can talk about a little bit more about that. An interesting thing about the moment. I would say, I'm stuck for an interesting. We're pretty interesting, but I think it's because we're like a, what's that?
Dog channel.
Oh, okay. So if we're doing that, the interesting thing is we are very dog friendly. I'll tell you more about who we are and what we do later, but we are very dog friendly.
All right, Peter.
Peter Aprile. I work in a company called Counter Tax Lawyers. Unsurprisingly, that makes me a lawyer. And we practice tax litigation, so we represent businesses in disputes with the government. So what do we design, or what do we create? Art is the short answer. Legal submissions and legal services generally. We also have, we're incubating a legal tech company in our law firm as well. And an interesting thing about Counter, Joyce doesn't know this yet. So over the last 3 days, I figured out how my organization can fire me without me being able to do anything about it.
All right. Can everybody hear okay? Can I just check in? Is everybody good? Oh, can't hear Peter at all. All right, Peter, you got to lean into the microphone a little bit more.
Okay.
All right, and Joyce.
Hi everybody, my name is Joyce. I work at Counter Tax Lawyers as well. We, as Peter already mentioned, we're a tax litigation law firm. I am to the outside world a paralegal, but I do have roles that I do energize for the firm. We'll tell you a little bit more information about that, but I think Peter gave most of the background. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming. As we move through the different questions today, everything we're going to talk about can be applied to small organizations, big organizations, parts of organizations, and we're going to leave a good chunk of time for questions. And so all of the skeptical questions that may come up along the way as we're digging in, keep those and we'll dig into those for sure. And because it's such a small group, if there are any really timely questions, if you want to jump in, then feel free to ask as we go as well. Sound good? So why are we at a design show talking about self-management? I'm going to turn it over to our innovation designer. I don't know if you can see the screen or you remember.
I can't, but I think I told you to put it up.
So you know what it is. All right.
Speak to it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so we thought this question might come up, why talk about self-management at a place where people are most likely doing a lot of talking about the design of things and space, right? So we wanted to talk about, you've probably seen a model like this, or there are lots, when we were looking up a model to share on the slide, there are hundreds of iterations of what you see up there. It's this idea of the 4 orders of design, the design of, things and all the way up, sorry, now I do want to see it. The things to organizations, to services, to all the way up to systems. And you can apply the design method to all of those things. And so when we think about organizational design and how organizations are designed, they are, make no mistake. Even if you didn't think about it and you just did the last thing you're used to, you still designed it. You still made it, right? And we can either sort of go with the template that has been given to us, the sort of traditional way of looking at organizations, or the way in which we organize with one sort of level of consciousness, or we can evolve it and move into something new. And so what we're talking about now is how to design organizations into self-managing ones in a way that works for people. So using the design model of knowing what we need to do and understanding the people who are going to be using the thing that we make, all the way up to how does it deploy into the world. So that's why. That's how it all fits into the whole design question, is this idea of working at that organizational design level.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to put this slide up. We're not going to talk too much directly about it, but it will form a lot of the conversation that's going to follow. So there are a number of key elements to self-management, and the ones that are up here: decentralized decision-making, shared values, true purpose, being deliberately developmental in how we work, and feedback loops. So I'll leave this slide up and you can listen for some of these things as we dig into the individual elements. So first I'm going to throw it back to you, Erika, with the question of, so why did the Moment choose, as a design firm that does a lot of this work, why did you choose to go to a model of self-management?
I think the origins of it were very early. So a company called The Moment, right? There was a meaning behind that title, and it was that the 3 people who founded The Moment felt a change in the world, that things were suddenly, that big changes were coming in climate, in politics, in the way we think, and they felt that this was the moment to try something new. And right at the heart of that was trying to work in new ways, trying to shake out what they didn't like about working in the corporate world, shake out what they didn't like about working in traditionally organized organizations, and try to do it better. And they didn't have a whole lot of tools at the time, and so what we ended up shaping into was something, if anyone has been reading Frederick Laloux's work, something very green. A green organization feels very family. It feels you make a lot of decisions by committee or by consensus or by everyone agreeing and coming together and feeling really good about the things. And so we turned into that kind of organization just based on being a group of really, really nice people. But that takes a long time, and it sucks a lot of energy out of the work that we wanted to do, just because we spent a lot of time trying to make good decisions. And so we moved into this idea of being a self-managing organization because we felt we needed more clarity on how to make decisions and who makes the decisions, and trying to make sure that with that we weren't going to fall into a pyramid structure of all the decisions flowing up to the top of the organization or our founders. So we needed to shake that out and find a way to organize in such a way that it became a leaderful organization where people could make decisions quickly, efficiently, and we could treat all the people in the organization like adults who don't need to be managed. So that was the reason.
Nice. And Peter, for you, what was the internal motivation? So you were the founder of your organization, and you're working in a industry that's fairly established in how it works.
Fairly.
So what was your inner motivation for making change?
It's funny, I was thinking about that. I think that there are a lot of stories that I can tell. The two that I'll tell really quickly, and both of them are true. The first one is we were building something that I thought was kind of neat and kind of cool and kind of unique, and I was known to be building it as the founder, and I was uncomfortable with being known to build it because that's just not true. One person doesn't build anything. One person doesn't create anything. And so anytime you have like hierarchies and you have this hero leader, right, who apparently does everything and solves all the world's problems, and then you have a bunch of people who what do they do? I guess they kind of carry his lunch. And that's just not how I work in the world, and that's just not true, and that's just not authentic. And so Counter built a bunch of stuff that was really cool, and I knew that at a certain point in time the next thing we had to build adopt was a new model, because if we adopted and continued on the path of the existing model, the traditional models, Counter wouldn't be true, and Counter couldn't be the organization it wanted to become in the world. So that's the long answer. The short answer is because I'm super selfish. And the connection between me and I think a lot of people in this room, I think everybody in this room, is that I'm a creator and I'm here to create something. And the traditional model does not allow me to create in a way that I need to create. And not only that, it puts me in a position to stifle the creation of others. And I'm not here to do that.
All right. And Joyce is working for Counter, and now you've been self-organizing for how long? It's been
about a year and a half.
About a year and a half?
A little over a year, yeah.
So if you think of Counter before and think of Counter now, what would we feel that would be different if we were to go and step into your organization?
Right. So I am a paralegal. Obviously I work for a law firm. In a traditional law firm, paralegals are known to be the people that support lawyers, but traditionally they'll be like, paralegals have to make photocopies and do all this stuff, that the more admin work. So when I started working at Counter, I went in with that mentality of a traditional law firm, of not being given the opportunity to be able to do more substantive work. And so when we started this journey, prompted creativity in me and productivity. What I mean by that is, I can just give a quick example. Me and Peter were having a conversation about this the other day. We have a lot of clients, so we usually have what we call client meetings, where we discuss strategy on what we're going to do on files. So in a traditional law firm, you'd go in the meeting waiting for the lawyer to tell you, hey Joyce, this needs to be filed with the court. Hey Joyce, this needs to be done. But now I am going in with the mentality of, hey, I have a role that requires that I file documents. So I raise my hand and say, hey, this is how I can contribute to the client's file. I'm not waiting anymore to be told what to do. I am contributing. I am prompting myself to think of things that need to get done. And that's been, in the beginning, it was a little bit of a challenge because it takes you stepping into power, opening up your mind and knowing that things need to get done. And you don't have to wait to be told something in order to be creative and help move files. So that's been the big shift that we've had. And another great example that I have is, so end of last year, I had to go home. I'm from Tanzania. I had to go back home for my sister's wedding. And I needed to get additional days off, paid time off, separate from my vacation days that I'm entitled to. And I went to Budget and Resources and said, hey, I need more time off. In a traditional law firm, you would need to get permission for that. But Budget and Resources said, hey, we don't have a system for this. You need to go figure out how you can get that paid time off. So in that moment, instead of holding back, I took that as an opportunity to learn and set a precedent for something else that we didn't already have. So it's small things like that that completely change your mind and the way you approach things, as opposed to waiting to be told to do something. You're opening your mind. You have that shift of, hey, I can self-manage and help create something for the firm that can be used by somebody else.
Nice. Dirk, you have, so the ET group has been around for 40 years-ish, something like that, and shifted to self-organizing about 2.5 years ago. So something like that. So pretty long history. So how did you make the shift? How did you go from an organization that had so much history working one way and make the shift to self-organizing?
So I guess first I was incredibly disillusioned with corporations, and in having worked in organizations that really stifled my own creativity and others, I said, okay, there has to be a different way. So I went searching and actually took a year off, went to experience different organizations that were self-managed, and started just collecting practices and new ways of working. So then the choice came, okay, how do we do this? I think I know how to do it. I could have just, gone there and made an autocratic decision as the CEO. We're shifting how we're working, and tomorrow people work differently. But the approach I took, that just felt wrong, because the history of the company was a history of those types of decisions. There's always had been an owner that would call the shots and ultimately make the big decisions. So it felt fundamentally wrong to shift in that manner, even though there's many successful examples of that happening. But given the baggage that ET Group had, that didn't feel right. So it was more of a constant invitations and prototyping of different new ways of working. And then once some of those prototypes started working well, we actually decided to go self-managed as a group. And we used a group process called the generative decision-making process to make the decision. And the decision was not, hey, this is what it's going to look like. We actually didn't even know. I had many ideas of what it could look like, but it was actually more like, okay, we're committed to starting this journey and also to figuring it out together.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and clearly one that's it's a taxing journey, isn't it? So let's get into what exactly is a self-managed organization. What does it look like? What does it feel like? So if we can get a little more tactical, Erika, on what is it?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me that I think was the biggest shift from a traditional organization to a self-managed was that we don't have a person boss. There isn't a person boss. There is a purpose boss. Purpose is the boss. We serve the purpose. And the purpose is clear and everybody knows it. So for the moment, I'm going to hope I get this right. The moment exists to empower people to lead change and co-create a thriving human future. So that's a big purpose. We have lots of ways in which we do that. But as long as everyone is working toward that purpose, we should maintain alignment. So purpose is the boss, that's the big thing. And then there are circles. I wrote down all the things we were going to talk about. So we need to organize in some way. The concept of an organization full of, that has no structures in it is possible, but I'm not there yet. So circles sort of organize like roles to work toward sub-purposes that serve the big one, right? So I'll use the moment as an example because it's the one I know how to talk about. So we have 5 circles in the organization. There's growth, which houses all the things you might think of when you think of a company growth, like business development and closing deals and marketing and product development and service development and all those things. So, and analytics that go in with there. And then there's our accounts, which is all of our client work, everything, every client interaction that we have, all the accounts that we hold, that lies in accounts. We have a strategy circle. We have a thriving team circle, which is all about employee experience. And then they all fall into the big circle called the general company. So those are circles. Inside the circles are roles. So we are a 15-person organization. I wish I'd counted the roles before I got here, but I can't remember. They're like 50 roles. But the roles aren't all big. So I, as a person, am one person with one position. I'm an innovation designer. I hold 13 roles. But some of the roles I don't activate all the time. Some of them I come in, come out of, and some of them take a lot of my time. So it ends up working like what you would see on a job description. You know, there are lots of different things that you do within your job. And in this, the way that it's organized in a self-managing organization is because you can serve a role and then come out of it. You can go in, you can go out, you can hold it for a while, leave it, you can hold it for a long time, you can hold it along with other people if you each have a different focus. Now,
can you just add something to the job description?
you totally can.
It's a job description that's customized to you.
Yes.
So it's not a generic job description.
Yeah.
It's actually one that's tailored to your strengths.
Yeah, and actually I don't have a job description.
Yeah, it's
you have
roles.
role descriptions.
Yeah.
Now, here, the role is actually the key where it all, for me, becomes clear. Is that each role has a purpose to the role, like what that role is there to do. And then you have a set of accountabilities. And those accountabilities no one else has. No one else has those lines of text that say, you have accountability over these things. Which means that if I hold a role, I also get to make all the decisions related to those accountabilities. And no one else gets to make those decisions. Not the founder of the company, not a lead of a circle, just me. Those are mine because I own them, because I'm in that role. And I only hold them as long as I'm in that role. If I move out of that role, those aren't mine anymore. And so, we're in an organization, and I'm in a role, and Dirk's in a role, and I have feelings about Dirk's accountabilities. I don't actually have the right to meddle in what Dirk is doing. He's in his lane, he makes all the decisions, he can ask for my advice, I can offer my advice, but if I go any further than that, I'm kind of meddling in what Dirk is trying to activate within his role. So that's the beauty for me is in the clarity of role and how I am so very clear and I can always return to it and go, nope, I have no right to feel that way. Or nope, I don't have a right, I feel a tension about it, like I'm annoyed at whatever's happening, but I don't have a right to be annoyed. It's someone else's job. Now that doesn't mean I don't share information with people, it doesn't mean I don't collaborate with people, but it does mean that when I am clear about the decisions that I make. Okay, one more thing. Domains are also an interesting thing. So you can set domains within a self-managing organization to say that, let's say the account circle has domain over how work happens with clients. So no other circle or other role outside that circle could say, I think you should be running your project this way, because that lies in the domain of accounts. So domains are fun because they also sort of draw a line and say, this is my space, or the space I hold right now while I hold this role. And we often talk about role to role. If you have something to bring up, people often ask you, from what role are you bringing that? so that we know that you have a right to be talking about that. Anyway, interesting
Okay.
stuff.
So we got roles in circles with domains,
We do.
and then stuff needs to happen. So Dirk, do you want to share maybe a few of the ways that tools, practices
Yeah.
that help those things work?
And I would say obviously this varies by organization, and there's a lot of practices. It's by no means a willy-nilly piece. Once you replace, those management layers, there's stuff that those folks were doing, so you need to replace them with processes. So the way we hold each other accountable, energizing roles, is we've got tactical meetings. So each circle that has a distinct purpose has a tactical meeting, and the whole point of those is to get in sync as to, hey, what's going on in line with that particular purpose, but also to raise tensions. Is there things that are getting in the way of us achieving that purpose in a more elegant and effective way? And the idea there is we figure out, okay, who needs to do what? Do we need to? So that's one meeting, tactical meetings. There's also governance meetings. Many times, work changes. We live in a world where things are changing all the time. So we also have governance meetings where we can, for example, change the accountabilities of a particular role, where we can create or destroy roles. We can create or destroy circles because, hey, that thing that we were doing yesterday is no longer valid. So let's not spend energy here. Let's destroy that. And it's wonderful because it really allows you to be dynamic and agile. And as things change, you change. The organization changes in a clear manner because it's all represented and available too. So
Nice. And so Joyce, if you think back to the early days of this type of way of working coming into the counter environment, what are some of the learnings now that you can look back and say, oh, I wish I knew that, or oh, would have done that differently?
It's a lot of things. Just to jump off, talking about roles and how they're very important in a self-managed organization. I know that when we started our journey, we struggled a lot with building roles. In the beginning, we focused so much on accountabilities and the tasks that need to be done, but after a little while, we realized that no, it's not only about what that role is going to do. You can't execute your tasks or accountabilities without fully understanding the purpose of that role. What is your purpose when you're doing those tasks? So that was a bit of a struggle when we first started, and even building the roles. Like we had sticky notes all over the firm. It was quite a struggle in that sense. And the other thing that I distinctly remember when we started this journey is we had to learn to step into power. That, as easy as it sounds, when somebody gives you power, it's not always easy to step into power and take charge and actually make decisions. It's not a very easy thing to do. That was a learning curve. I'm not saying I am great at it. I'm still learning, but that's one thing I can definitely highlight that I struggled with a little bit when we first started.
Yeah, that one a lot, actually, yeah. Peter, so now 18 months in, you had a reason you shared earlier, kind of your reason of why you started on the journey. So now 18 months later, what's the impact been? Has it been worth the journey?
I often say I wouldn't work anywhere else. I don't think we're very employable anywhere else anymore. Once you work in this environment, and by the way, just to be clear, this is like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life and the hardest thing I've ever asked a group of people to do it with me. So this is not like we've been doing this for a while and we figured it out. No clue. But the question is, would I ever do it any other way, or is all the pain, financial and otherwise, worth it? Like absolutely. Like I don't know how you could, like once you see this, you can't work in another organization. Then you look at larger organizations. My street cred here is my wife is an interior designer. Actually, I know you from the Steelcase Christmas party. Thank you so much. My kids are big fans. So yeah, you like there's no other way to do this, right? Like when you hear, like when you start to share, like, and I hate the word share power because like people already have it. Our organizational structure takes it from them, or we take it from them. So like I'm not giving anything to anybody. We're just figuring out what the system is to make sure that it's not taken, and it's not taken based on some sort of weird like power dynamic that isn't expertise or a meritocracy. And so, like, to answer your question, like, yeah, it's a terrible thing. I don't know how everybody else is working, and you're not. And yeah, I'm not gonna work. I'll never work in another company that's not managed this way. There's no way. And primarily not because I was at the top of the pyramid, right? So like, for me, like share power. What do I care? I have it all. It's about how I relate to the people that I work with and how I can connect with them, and like I was saying earlier, and how I can see them create and how I can help enable them to reach that potential, and then and equally so, like without just saying it for like the way we all say it from like a marketing speak perspective, like it's equally they contribute to me. And so like I can't be as powerful in any other organization without this type of structure, so why would I do that?
All right. So we're going to try and go to question maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So before then, let's bring self-management a little bit closer to the design space. So Dirk, how has ET Group, the way that ET Group has interacted with customers evolved? Like the whole design process that you use with customers, how has it been impacted by this journey to self-organizing internally?
It's fully transformed it actually, and it allowed us to transform in a quick manner. We used to be the technology experts. Tell us what you need, and we're gonna tell you, here's what you need to put in your rooms or systems. And then we realized, okay, there has to be a better way to get closer to the customers. So we shifted to having a human-centric design process, and we shifted, I won't say overnight, but definitely it just took one prototype, and then we said, okay, well, this works way better. Let's change the whole thing. And because of our way of making decisions, it allowed the decision to be done very, very quickly. And we've taken it the other way around. At one point, we also thought, hey, we've learned how to transform ourselves. Maybe that should be an offering that we provide. ET now is going to go out and transform other organizations. Quickly, we got feedback that, guess what? You guys are technology integrators. Great that you're human-centric, but you're not there to transform others. Okay, we got feedback, and we got rid of that business in overnight. Like, it was like, got the feedback, did some sensing, decision made, circle destroyed. Not a big deal in the ET construct. So we're able to really sense and respond to market, to our own need, like all these things. So yeah.
Okay. Peter, Joyce, how has this had any impact on how you work with customers, with your clients?
Well, we just talked about your relationship with one of our clients and the power dynamic between the two.
Right. Yeah, on our way here, we're actually talking about one of our clients that we've been working with for a while. We have a relationship with them. We've been struggling a little bit with communicating with them in order to meet what they need from us or what they are expecting from our firm. And Peter and I were just talking about how me and my roles can help shift his mindset of how he looks at me.
Yeah, it's like, so people are showing up for lawyers, right? Because you can solve my problem because you're my hero. Mm-hmm. So why would they listen to Joyce? So I don't want to talk to Joyce. Give me Peter, right? And so when you start to so then the question becomes like, so what's Joyce doing to facilitate him seeing her through that lens and not getting what he needs? What is the power dynamic here, and what lenses are we all using to look at one another? And when you start to look at power dynamics in that way and how they show up, and Joyce is an expert in her role, and that's why she's in her role. She's not in her role because she's Joyce. Like when we talk about roles, it's like this is expertise based. This is not kumbaya. So if Joyce is talking to you, I suggest you listen, because I do not know this space. Like, that is your expert. And so if you can't see that because of how you move through the world and the lens you usually have, then the question is, how do we as an organization work with our clients and help them shift that? Or how does Joyce show up differently, or how do I show up differently?
Right, and help them understand that there's value in collective intelligence. Just because Peter is the lawyer, he doesn't mean he has all the answers. I'm also an expert in what I bring to the table. So
Can I just jump off on that? Because I didn't understand what collective intelligence was until 3 months ago. I thought I understood what collective intelligence does. This is to me this is the thing. Collective intelligence isn't getting intelligence from a group of people. That's not how it shows up in my world. It shows up that I have this really great set of skill sets, and I can solve a lot of problems in the world, but unless I can hear Joyce, unless she talks and brings her intelligence to the table, but also if I hear it in a way, then our intelligence can combine two pieces on a puzzle, and you can't create the puzzle without both pieces. And when you start to work in these structures that, you start to feel collective intelligence in a way that doesn't show up in a normal organization. Sorry, this is deeper than
Yeah.
That was real.
One last question before we open it up. So, Erika, you spend a lot of time in your work working with larger organizations and bringing maybe not all of self-management, but parts of self-management into the larger organizations. So maybe you could speak just a little bit about what you see in that space.
Yeah, so unless we are invited to help people reorganize, we're not going to enter that space. We work with large enterprises, banks, the big guys, and by guys I mean people. But they organize in a certain way, and what we do is we organize our project teams to fit what they're ready for. So many times our clients are ready for a little taste of self-management within our project team. And what they get out of it is just amongst ourselves that we are organizing in this way, that everyone has a clear role, everyone is super, not only super collaborative, but also really clear on who leads what and who decides on what, and it makes decisions go really quickly. And our level of creativity, I believe, and the quality of our work has become just really superb. It's really amped up the awesome of what we've been able to provide for clients. And I've been reading our channel in Slack called Client Love, and it's when clients give us a testimonial or send us a note that's really nice, and it's nice to share that with the team. But lately, it's been all things like yes, results, blah, blah, blah. They always say, the results are amazing, and these are amazing, the designs, whoa. But the thing that's getting to me lately is it was a breath of fresh air to work with your team, or I have a lot of projects, and this was my favorite. Or you guys are the ray of sunshine in a dark, dark world. And it isn't because we are special in who we are. Yes, we are special people. I love my team, but I do believe it's how we work and how we show up, and the level of respect we hold for people, and that they feel there is no hierarchy on that team. They feel it, and they feel like every single person can help them. So this story you shared about them seeing you guys bringing whatever you bring and holding you both as equal contributors in that room in whatever role you're coming from is exactly what we're getting from clients. That they don't see me, even if I am leading the project, they don't feel an absence when I am not there. if I'm not needed there and the rest of the team is leading, they feel fully taken care of. And I really feel like it's because of the way we approach work for ourselves, and we bring that to clients.
Nice. So we just like scratched not even the surface. We haven't even got to the surface of self-management yet, which is the challenge of doing these really quick sessions. But I want to open the floor to just whatever questions you have, and the harder the question, the more skeptical the question, the more challenging the question, the better. So if you've got like really just kind of tactical questions about how self-management works, great. If you really want to challenge it, then go for it. So what questions do you have?
I have tons.
Okay.
Go for it.
Go for it.
But given the audience in the room, I'll pick one that I think is a little bit more for our audience. And so I'm listening to the way that you are all organized, and if it's quite different than when we go into design experiences and spaces for our current customers and the way they are structured.
Yes.
And this could be possibly a way, a way that we're designing spaces for organizations like you in the future. What would that look like? Today, we're designing in many cases around hierarchy and structure of an organization, but the way that you're describing these organizations, in some ways it's more like agile teams where they're dynamically changing all the time. That comes with design challenges. So if you're approaching space from a self-organizing perspective, are you doing it around position, roles, circles, accountabilities? What's the driver around space?
Great question.
I can speak at least to my experience. So, and Tiffany, please pipe in because we both work in the same space. I think purpose leads our space. So the space needs to serve the purpose of what we do. There are a few people who, I think Tiffany's one of them. There are 3 people within our 15-person organization who actually have a little home base within the space, like a little place of their own. And it is because they are there all the time. So it's a practical thing. Basically just like you are here in the studio all the time. Everyone else moves and needs different spaces at different times because of the fluidity of our roles. So it is set up in such a way that it serves the work we need to do.
So it's activity-based working design?
Yeah, so I think, like a big space for hosting. There are collaborative spaces around. There are small quiet rooms. There are, it is really just about what needs to get done,
And
not who sits there.
Yeah, and we've actually prototyped with clients. And what we started doing is, okay, now we need to start caring about the purpose of the organization we're working with and actually understanding what are you trying to do? How do you generate value? What does collaboration mean for you? And doing that in a very co-creative way. So yeah, inviting a whole bunch of different stakeholders to the party. And actually, we've been dreaming with collaborating with, let's say, furniture designers, interior designers, to do this jointly so we can bring all the expertise to the table. Because right now it's still parallel streams. We're good at cooperating in design. We're not good at collaborating. That's the next stage we need to learn to do. But that's it. It's like, get the right people to the table that actually care about the client, have a co-creative approach, and figure it out, right? And for example, in our case, we've done, we surface a whole bunch of insights through our design thinking process, and then we actually test those and bring stakeholders together and have an innovation lab with our clients and our experts there to solution together, and then that becomes real. So I think it takes more time, but the end result is just, can be magical, right?
Can I actually, so I told you my wife's a designer, and so I'm said to her, I'm talking at IDS before you, what's the deal with that? So she's like, why, I don't even get why you're talking to her. And I'm like, I don't know either, Dirk asked me. She's challenging why I'm here and why this is connected to this audience. And so when you bring up the question, how are our spaces different, right? So, and you brought up language earlier. There's no language or space yet for what we do. So what we got is activity-based, but that's not what we need. Mm-hmm. And then my challenger question for people like Steelcase is, how are you going to figure it out unless you're doing it? If you're not living it, how are you going to figure it out before everybody else does and design it?
And I hear you, because I think we experiment on ourselves typically before we expose different concepts to customers. So we jumped on Agile, and we jumped on
Yeah.
a lot of different things, sometimes earlier than customers are ready to hear them, which is sometimes challenging. But that sort of leads to another question, but I don't want to like hog all the questions. How have you seen success in large organizations like Steelcase or a bank? Is there a profile of the kinds of companies that self-managing works for? Like we have a manufacturing division. Could self-managing work in manufacturing in the same way that it could in professional services? How does that work?
Yeah. I'm happy to take that one. So the largest organization that I know of in the world that's doing self-management is Gore-Tex, which is $3 billion in revenue and 10,000 employees, I think. And as an organization grows, the way you do self-organizing at 10 people versus 50 people versus 100 versus 10,000 is obviously can be a little bit different. There are a number of examples from the manufacturing world that are doing this. One in North America is Morningstar, which is the largest tomato processing factory, if you will, in at least North America. There are also some great examples in Europe. Europe, it tends to be a little bit further ahead in this space than we are in North America, and there's some great examples there as well. There's kind of the book that really helped to define this space over the last little while is a book called Reinventing Organizations. And there's a website called Reinventing Organizations Wiki, wiki.com. And if you go there, it lists a lot of different examples of organizations that they talk about in the book. So there's an organization called Fabi as an example that is in a very industrial kind of, they make like metal parts of some sort, and they're all self-managed as an organization. So.
But I think
Is there still seniorities? Like you talk about circles, but so in a typical organization like mine,
Yes.
you would maybe have different levels of both compensation and responsibility, which you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
How do shareholders then react to now having it much more egalitarian in the way that decisions are being made with their investments?
Great. So yeah, who wants to take that?
Well, I don't think I can. Our shareholders, they're part of the mix, and they decided to do this. So I don't think it's a good answer to your question.
Or publicly shared.
Yeah, and
Okay.
well, in our case, we're privately shared, but maybe, so I don't know how it works in a public setting. In a private setting, the people working up become shareholders too. So there is also the value that gets generated also starts being decentralized. There is still hierarchy from an influence standpoint. For example, if it's related to hardcore technology design, I have zero influence there. That's the AV designers within our space. They're the ones that call the shots around that. And so it's more based on your particular expertise and talents. That hierarchy exists, but it's way more natural based on true meritocracy, I would say, on the things that you actually know something about, not just positional power, so to speak.
Yeah, like the notion that this isn't a hierarchy I buck against. Like this is a hardcore hierarchy. This is a better hierarchy than we ever had before. And like I'm high on the list and low on the list in the appropriate cases for the right reasons, not because I founded the company or anything like that. And by the way, so the shareholders question is an interesting question. And then again, like I think a lot of this stuff, like people hear it a certain way, but it's a mindset shift that starts and then you start to hear it differently. But the question is, do you believe in purpose over profit, or do you believe purpose will generate a higher return? And so if I just put on my shareholder hat for a second, and I just say, do I fundamentally believe that? Do I believe that organizations that are purpose-driven will perform better than organizations with a group of people in it who don't care about the shareholders, who are chasing dollars for other shareholders? I fundamentally believe that's true. And so if I put my investor hat on, yeah, I win because of this as an investor. But I do believe that if you start with the business case or you start to look through that lens, you won't get there.
One example is Zappos, which is a company in the US, and they are now owned by Amazon. And they do some pretty radical stuff. They're on the front edge of a lot of what we're talking about here. The general, in the things that I've read so far, is that in order for an organization to move to self-organizing and to be able to sustain it, it is the board of directors or whoever has to be supportive. If they're not supportive the first time something goes sideways, then it's like, oh, it's the system's problem, you got to go back to the other way. But if the board of directors is supportive, then it will continue.
And not just supportive as in, oh, that sounds like a great idea. It's like, no, they need it. They need to need it. Otherwise, it won't work. So you can still do it at a team level. Let's say you have positional power right now. You could create a self-organized team within a large organization. And there's many examples of that, very highly successful. But to transform the whole thing, you need that top to get it and be working from this angle. Otherwise, it won't.
What you need is you need the top to feel threatened and still stay in the space.
Yeah.
Like you actually need to threaten their power. Like they actually need to lose something or fear losing something deeply, and then they stand in the space. And if that's what support, that's what support means. So I need to physically, I have to risk something and feel a deep risk in the core of my being. And if I can still stand in the space, we might get there.
Other questions? Yeah.
Very great panel. Self-management. I mean, we live in this traditional space, and it's the way that people have been able to manage and scale profitability at the same time analyzing their employees. But with the future and the world we're living in, we're behind technology. We're getting up there. We're getting women in board of director positions where equality is very important. And so self-management is essentially very important. But we've got to break this traditional cycle. You're right, we've got to threaten them, but sometimes some people are just comfortable with measuring the traditional way, and they're not ready to move into what 2025, 2030, and 2035 is going to look like. And so this is very important. Now on the flip side, how do you find the qualified employees who are trusting enough so that they can control? This is so new, this is so dynamic, so I really enjoy this panel. I guess, I don't know what my question is. I guess it's more along the line of how do you break that traditional stigma? Because the clientele's out there, and we are ready for it, because that's the only way we're going to be able to compete.
I'm gonna direct this to Dirk because you had an organization that was very traditional, super traditional for 38 or so years. So what's your experience been? Because there are employees at an ET group that have been there 30 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, to Peter's point about the risk, we were facing an existential risk at ET Group, where it's like, oh, the old way and the power dynamics almost brought the company to its knees, and that created an opening to say, okay, well, hey, maybe we have to try a different way, and it requires trusting. It's like, oh my God, actually trusting each other. And sorry, this gets me emotional because it's really gets down to.
Yeah, no, I feel it. I'm with you.
Shifting yourself. Can you trust? Can you really trust someone else?
Yeah.
I was going to say, sorry, because I feel strongly about this too, because I've been in design for 33 years, so I've seen all the trends, but I feel a subversive change in I can't manage the way that I was managed. I can't. So I feel like it's happening with or without us.
Yep.
Is that true? This is here.
Yeah.
It's maybe not in a chair or a wall.
Yeah.
It's how we're moving forward. So for me, this is great because I'm a designer, but I'm also a manager of young people. Yeah. And they're not always going to react the way that I would.
Yeah, I was just going to say some of there are fundamental changes happening in the world that is making the old, more traditional way of running a business not fit so much anymore. Like I look at my kids and they can find out what's going on anywhere in the world with a couple of clicks. So to sit in an office where I don't know what's going on in the office next to me, but I can go on my computer and find out what's going on the other side of the world, that doesn't make so much sense, right?
Or they will all stand up because they've all had a conversation somehow and do something. And
Yeah.
I'm maybe left out, so I'm like, I need to catch up.
Well, that's and that's what we see too. Like if you think about Facebook or Instagram, or like it's the best ideas rise to the top, and it doesn't matter where that came from. It's no longer because of the title of CEO, I had the best idea. No, it's the best idea gets voted up. That's what we see in our personal lives. So then when we go to work, and all of a sudden somebody gets to make a decision because they have a title. Like there's just this dissonance that starts to get
But
created.
can I say one other thing? On the other side, who's ready for it? So sometimes the young person isn't ready. So when you're defining the roles, I would be really fascinated to know how you define those roles. So for someone who's maybe just starting, you're not going to give them accountability. And I know you can't answer this question really. And that's
I
probably
can chime in a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did deal with the issue of the capability to lead projects for one. And we wanted to be able to have, like our dream was to have the whole team who's involved in client delivery be able to lead. Because it makes it much easier to resource our people to all the projects and to give people a chance to grow and achieve a lot of things. So we created roles, and then beside those roles are apprentice roles. But the interesting thing is they're not watching, they're doing. So if I hold an apprentice role, I am doing the whole job, and I have the right to make all the decisions. I'm in there. Only thing that's different in that role than the role without the word apprentice on it is that I have a coach. And if things go south, then the coach can take control to help, because it's meant to be a teaching thing. And then there is that person evaluates when they're ready to take the whole thing. But it isn't a watch and learn, or I'm going to give you a little, or I'm just going to let you do this little thing. It's like, nope, you are this thing. We are positioning you to the client in this way, and we'll choose the appropriate project that isn't like an enterprise transformation from like we're going to choose something that's like reasonable, and then we're going to set you up so you can get all that you need, that you have room to fail, that you have room to question yourself, but you're still doing the whole job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right.
We're playing with that. I have no idea whether that's the right thing to do, but that's how we've been playing with that.
I think that's how we've kind of been approaching it as well. I think the misconception with self-management is like, hey, go drown. No, you still have people that coach you. Like for example, something I've been working on is improving on my writing. And instead of the team leaving me to draft something and then rewriting it, what they're doing is giving me constructive feedback on how I can improve on that before we get it out. So it's things like that, or usually in the old traditional law firm, you would go and ask the lawyer, hey, what should I do? But now you're phrasing your question as, I'm proposing to do this. Do you see any harm? Do you see anything that I'm missing here? So they're not exactly giving you the answers, but they're coaching you and helping you get there so that you're in a better position next time.
I wasn't coaching before. I thought I was, but I wasn't coaching, right? Like Joyce comes, how's this? Like, good, bad? Like, what just happened here? Like, what's the question? Do I approve? Like, is that your question? Because that's not coaching. And like, do you know why? And by the way, are you asking for feedback? Because like there's like studies upon studies that say like it's if I give Joyce feedback, right, as opposed to she invites it, like the exchange and the learning is completely next level, right? Like, do this better, and I'm going to tell you why. Like, it's like, no, it's like, if she cares about doing it better,
she'll ask, and I'll give. And we talk about like HR and stuff like that. Like the reason why we can do this is because we're two of the right people in the room, and it's because I trust her to ask when she needs to ask, and she doesn't throw all that other stuff on me when I don't need it.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because I know we're over time. So we're happy to stay. We'll stay. We'll answer any questions you have. But here's our contact information. We're all, our organizations are all part of a community called Brave Works, and we are a community of leaders that are pursuing purpose, self-management, and wholeness in the workplace. And so there's many more of us than those on the panel here. And we just love talking about this stuff. So if you have any questions or anything, either now or later, we would be happy to help you and support you on your journey if you or any of your clients are on the path. So thank you, and we'll hang around if you have any questions.